Intelligence
talk a little bit
assets
about
report several
damage and
vulnerable
how
cogitator
to
stations in the
improve it,
area. Exact locations
generate on those
unknown.
classes.
Tech priests predict moderate hostile presence.
Debuffs and vulnerabilities are a super important tool for it, and there's several ways to go about and scale them with certain effects. I need a master effect here real quick so we can really see. I just have a small massacre bonus and I'm already at 55% crit, and it's just gonna go, the crit strength is gonna ramp up from it. But that's not all. If you see me just walking to a target, you see I'm very quickly getting vulnerability stacks on them. That's the skull with the crosshair. And instantly I'm getting the 10, one with 10, and that's the general vulnerability. And I get that from hitting with a fear aura or a shock aura. In this instance, shock aura. And the heat aura just adds all the other stuff just by standing there. And when I start hitting, of course, I add more of my effects. What general vulnerability gives you is, by adding it instantly, it's instantly giving you 100% more damage right off the bat. And which you then scale with your effectiveness of vulnerabilities. So with one on Crater, you do 150% damage, so on and so forth. And even in a 118, it just gives you, easy enemies of course, but you see us stacking up all our vulnerabilities, just standing here, don't have to attack really, and triggering effects from my different battle states. And that's a quick way to do damage to multiple enemies. And we can add in the teleporter for stuff like that. Really good for clearing out hordes and stuff. But you see, very quickly I have a lot of debuffs on the target. And without those, we're losing so much damage. It's really hard to see. Just instantly walking into that elite and then boom. Debuffs are there to do the job. With your heat aura, it's gonna do respectable damage in higher tiers, helping you keep alive and all the good stuff. Some of the items to really think about is the neural implant with critical hit and rage. Just this item is 160% damage bonus as it is because of the enraged state. And then I have the shock aura. You can also have a fear aura. I haven't gotten a good teleporter with fear, but I would prefer that. Because fear, I think, is better in some instances because it's take away suppression on the enemies. But if you have just the fear aura, you need to roll shock on vulnerability hits on your gear to trigger your shock explosions, for example. So this is just an easy setup. But when you're starting out, new character, these two items here, Enrage on crit is really good, and also you can get Enrage on kill on Purity Seals and Signums. And Enrage on kill are good for channeling builds, for example, Whirlwinds, channeling with Flamers, because you never let up the button, you just continue doing damage, you continue stacking it up without losing the token. The battle state Enrage also gives you the effect so you can have that shock aura. You only need one token to trigger the enraged state. And when the enraged state is up, like you saw, I just walked up to an enemy, boom, 10 stacks of general vulnerability from this, because you add a debuff effect. It works with the fear aura as well, and yeah. I have a build focusing on debuffing, just that's why I have this sword with the random vulnerabilities, but I also add my vulnerabilities on heat crits, and but I'm physical, so I think I ran out of passive points. That's what's going on here. But you see my DPS is fairly good on the White Strike. That's my main attack. So yeah, the battle station rates easier to set up than Berserk because it's item dependent with those two, Insanity and the main implant. But if you have enraged here on crit, then you can roll damage per enraged token, damage per enraged token, and damage per enraged token. So just with crafted gear, you can have huge damage that's going to carry you up and beyond. Then you toss in the fear or shock aura and the general vulnerability signum, and then you're basically good to go with any build you want to play, any weapon or anything. I prefer melee on console because life and shield drains are really nice. And as you see, I have lead. It started out as a dot build, didn't scale well, but the dot damage here is for this one, so I do all 3 dots, so it means that I hit for 45% more on my swings, not my dots. But yeah, enraged state is super important, and it's easy to get just 2 items. That one, 3 items really, can make more than double your damage. Enrage on criticals, with a shock or fear aura, you can get fear on purity seal. And then you have general vulnerability. Those 3 items can make it so you do general vulnerability is 100% more damage. Enraged states at max stacks is 160% damage. With Uncrater's on, that's 50% effectiveness to vulnerability on 3 slots. That's another 150% more effective of your vulnerability. So your general vulnerability is 150% more work. And then you add on your normal vulnerability stack, that's our physical or heat, that's 100%. So you have 200% bonus damage that are 150% more effective in a battle state that gives you 160% more damage. And it is what really ramps up your DPS fairly quickly. This is a 118. I'm only 10 stacks in my Berserk, but just standing there, the heat auras can do the work without hitting, just because of the battle states. If you start hitting them, they just melt quicker. Wasn't really good density here to show off the power of the shock doctrine, but I have some other videos with that on it. I'm not going to complete this mission because I hate channeling the... Yeah, okay, no. And then you see the shock aura now, the ticks are going way quicker when they are grouped together. And that's the shock explosion doctrine from the enraged state, and that can really carry your DPS. You have a chunk here. So, and then you can use your inoculator for more buffs and stuff. And you can see now my have 20 tokens, so that should give me 32 crit strength, and still I'm at 54 crit. I'm using some other weird interactions here, but those are that. And then Cold a Week is kind of a really good damage perk. Blessing of Sanctorius is also a really good perk for staying alive in higher tier missions. If you are daring, you can drop it, but it's just nice for safety. And then I use health regeneration build for even at low stacks, I'm hitting 600 HP per second, so that's 300% melee damage bonus when I take damage. So it ramps, another ramp up mechanic, so to speak. Oh, there's a boss, finally. Con effect. Boom. So let's abort this mission and see what else I'm gonna have here in store for damage. Your inoculator is a great source of getting bonus damages and picking up some slack in your build. For example, Morphia, if you have problem with suppression gain. But Psychons, just for big nukes, for whatever, 7.5 seconds or something. Really, just pop the inoculator when you drop into a big pile and just blow it up. But if you want sustained help, Murder Dust, if you're low on crit, slot in 2 of those, you get 10% supreme crit and some crit strength, so it can help you quite a long way. And together with Hold Fast, then it means it's a 30-second duration on the Murder Dust. And that's the same as a digital weapon. So 2 Murder Dust and a digital weapon gonna net you 40% crit and 40% crit strength, for example. And that's gonna take you a long way until you get better gear, for example, with just a piece like that. I like the teleporter to move around quickly and using facing assault to dash. But as I said, the digi weapons are also a great source of early game damage, because it gives you 30% crit for 30 seconds, not the worst cooldown on it. If you want to a little bit knock back if you need, but not really helpful. Do some decent chunks of damage with the scatter field. Teleporter, it gives you surprise state, so you get crit chance, crit, extra dodge and damage bonus after teleporting. Works on all classes, and it helps you traverse maps and move over hinders. Another, don't I have? 2 other strong belt. Let me see if we can find them in this clutter. Here they are. Refractor fields can be really good. 30 seconds with suppression, survivability, and damage, extra bonus damage reduction. Way to stay alive for a long period. Or Rosarius gonna be damage immunity for 5 seconds. There are several weapons and armors with triggering the Rosarius on hit. So one of those items can give you quite high uptime if you have a lot of AoE hits on the Rosarius field to stay alive. Grenades and mines aren't really that great. Most of the time you look at the relic stat on an item and see if it's gonna fit your build. But if you're using force fields, you should look into the support tree. You get 5 points here, and you get higher uptime, extra charges. If you then have supply drops as well, you can have super high uptime on your force fields. And the extra charges on your inoculators are really good because it's expensive to set them up. No points in health is for the survivability reason. It's just paper. I have 5,700 hit points. And that's fairly low. But resistances and damage reductions, your shield drain, life drains, those are more important. If you're running a range build, 90% of the time you want to still use the heat aura. If you're running a two-hand weapon, you might want to have shards that give you, if I have it here somewhere on, taking it down somewhere. This shard that gives you suppression, oh there it is, and life per hit. You can only have one of those, but in a two-handed weapon with a heat aura and life per hit, your heat aura is gonna give you 120 life per second per target hit. So standing toe-to-toe to enemies, it's gonna keep you plenty healthy. And then you have a suppression on hit as well. And the heat aura is a 4-socket. So that's a good way to go about getting some extra survivability. I went with an extra debuff for the hell of it, and because I'm an assassin and I get more crit strength on targets for every debuff, so kinda like that one. Hidden DPS increase is this cooldown reductions, because if you don't have channeling abilities, there's a cooldown on your skills, and it actually affects your single target attacks, so it just increased the DPS to have shorter cooldowns. That's why the AoE tree makes so strong if you have spammable AoEs. If you're going single target, you can go for this one to get a bit of extra cooldown if you get a one-shot on a tiny enemy. What else? Yeah, vulnerabilities. Where do we find them in your build? The melee tree, based on crit. Heat tree, based on crit. Ranged combat. I'm not sure if you have it here. But you have it in your physical tree. Yes, there you have. So if you're ranged physical or ranged heat, you, at least in the heat physical, you need to get that impact necrosis for vulnerability stacks, or here for vulnerability. The reason this one is just it gives me quicker stacks, and I like that. Well, I've been rambling long enough. Please ask questions and see if I can answer them later down the path in the game. And hopefully we get a new season soon. Bye.